Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between. We're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And the Batcats are doing great. And you know what? Maybe the real other teams were the friends we made along the way.
I think you're onto something there.
But of course, before we start, we always have to start the episodes by giving thank you to Grandma. So thank you, Grandma. But we're going to start off with the Batcats because we mentioned last week, although last week was a bit more of a downer episode with them because they did lose, we did mention that they did show flashes of being a really, really exciting team. And we also said that they were capable of beating anyone and losing to anyone. They proved the first part by beating 3 consecutive ranked teams. Number 5, Arkansas, number, I believe, 24 at the time, Michigan, and then number 22 at the time, TCU. So they just rattled all of those off. And the only one that was really close was the Arkansas game for the first one. So, yeah, this is the exciting team that we were really hoping for going into the year.
Yeah, this level of play from the Batcats is kind of what I was thinking we'd start to see in mid-April, because this team is made up of so many newcomers, and we also talked about it last week on the recap. But unless you're a team that's in the South or on the West Coast, you're gonna really struggle with coming out of the gates clicking, because there's a good chance that it's been below freezing for the 2 months leading in to the baseball season. And we saw that in the first weekend. K-State got housed by a not very good Washington team, lost twice to Coastal Carolina, then did beat St. Joseph's. But, really just took over the weekend, this past weekend. The Batcats did. I would not have predicted this outcome from this weekend in a million years. Honestly, I was hoping that we'd get away with one of these games, and we took all 3 of them. So just really, really, really fantastic stuff from the Batcats.
And 2 of the 3 of them were in very convincing fashion: 5-1 against Michigan and 10-2 up against TCU. So. And before we get into, because these are games that we're going to dive more deeply into, and it's not because the other games were losses. It's because it was a busy week, and also a lot of pain was had last week. We still do want to go more game by game with baseball, especially since tragically one of K-State's other teams has fallen off the face of the earth and will never be mentioned again. But a lot of this winning was based off of the back of some really, really good pitching. Only giving up 2 runs against a top 5 team in Arkansas, giving up only 1 against Michigan. And TCU has always been one of the more potent offensive teams in the Big 12, and we only gave up 2 to them. So I feel like this is a massive credit to, of course, each of the individual pitchers, which we'll go into as we go through the games. But I want to give credit to Rudy Darrow, because if there is one man on the staff who has been pretty much consistently dunked on the entire time that he has been here, and I'm not saying it's fair, because I really don't think it is fair. I've criticized him before, and I'll probably do it again, because pitching is just a fiddly animal. But I feel like Rudy Darrow deserves a lot of credit for this weekend, and just giving him his flowers, which he's what I'll say about Rudy Darrow is there have been times that he hasn't gotten credit that he really should have. And Jackson Wentworth is probably the biggest proponent of that, because Jackson Wentworth lost feeling in his fingers and then Rudy Darrow just taught him to pitch again. But that we can move on. After Connor gives his general thoughts, we can talk about the first game against Arkansas.
Yeah, I think you put it well, but I think one of the big things that came out of this weekend was kind of a weekend where it felt like every game there was a a new name that was kind of emerging for K-State, where we put a guy in a big situation, and they were either unproven or shaky, but then they would end up pulling through and playing a huge role for K-State coming out on top. Because, I mean, it really, at varying points throughout this weekend, it took just about everybody that K-State had to get these wins. And at varying points, just about everyone had to have their moment and just put things together. And pitching was great as well this weekend. I mean, the TCU game is a perfect example of it because K-State went through 3 pitchers in this game. TCU used 8 pitchers in this game. And there were, I think there was an inning where they had, I think, like 4 pitchers in an inning, 3 or 4. But K-State pitching for a relatively new staff with admittedly some key returners, but particularly on the starting rotation, a lot of new faces there. K-State doing incredible things. And all of that, we did not see Ty Rule this weekend, and we haven't seen Carson Liggett, who was billed as kind of the Friday, like, big day one starter as a pitcher. So that's without the 2 most recognizable names in the K-State pitching staff going into this season. So a phenomenal weekend and great job by the K-State pitching staff. That's not to discount the bats, but we'll get to them.
Yeah. Which, speaking of, we can just go ahead and dive straight into the bats because first matchup was up against Arkansas. K-State ends up winning 3-2. This is the game that I honestly, full disclosure going into it, this is the game that I thought K-State stood the lowest chance of winning because I thought that Arkansas was just going to try and beat the brains in of the Batcats team that played a role in eliminating them last year. But K-State was able to hold them off. And, you know, Arkansas had it tied twice, but they never led in this game. And you look down the batting line, and you can talk about the pitchers for this one, but you look down the batting line, and there isn't one insane stat line. I mean, D. Kennedy goes 2 for 4 with an RBI. Micah Dean goes 1 for 3 with a walk in an RBI, and then Shintaro Inoue 1 for 3 with an RBI. That's pretty much it. No home runs this game, which this entire 3-game stretch, there were only 2 home runs for K-State, and both were in the same game. So you're also seeing a little bit of shift in offensive philosophies because I remember the year that they missed out on the tournament. That was their calling card. We had Roberto Pena, we had Cole Johnson, and Nick Goodwin. And our entire strategy was we're going to hit nukes and then see if everything else works out afterwards. And then occasional bunting from the bottom of the lineup. But this is perhaps the final form of the Pete Hughes squad where they can do it with small ball, with, you know, smaller extra base hits. So really impressive performance, you know, especially from D. Kennedy. D. Kennedy probably gets the game ball here alongside Micah and Shintaro. But the real winners here are the pitchers.
Yeah, and I think you singled out the right guys as well. Particularly Micah Dean, because Micah Dean's RBI, this came after the 6th inning where Arkansas put up back-to-back solo home runs, evening the score 2-2. And then David Bishop immediately gets on base, and then Micah Dean scores him from first with a really well-struck double. And that put K-State in the lead for good, and that 3-2 lead held the rest of the way. But you can't do that without some really good pitching. And that comes with Jacob Frost getting the start, who last year, notably, outside of a 7-inning no-hitter that was closed out by Jackson Wentworth for a combined no-hitter for K-State, he really struggled last year. Honestly, wasn't great in his first outing this year either, but he was fantastic in this game. 5 1/3, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts, 78 pitches. for Jacob Frost in this outing. So, this was the Jacob Frost that we were kind of hoping for last year, because he was kind of hyped up going into last season. We saw flashes, but just was not consistent enough. And this outing was really good for him. But he did have to leave a little earlier. But Blake Dean, who again was one of the bright young stars of last year's team, one of the few young guys that really kind of shone through on a team laden with veterans, Blake Dean came in and just slammed the door shut. 3 2/3, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts, did hit a batter, did that in 56 pitches. But Blake Dean, he is a special talent who I would imagine will be here this year and next year, and then is probably headed to the MLB after that, because he is an immensely talented pitcher who seemingly has just a unlimited repertoire of pitches as well. But the K-State pitching in this game was absolutely phenomenal, and this was particularly a sticking point because those first 5 games down the Southeast, the pitching was not good, really in any of the games. Even the game that we won against St. Joseph's, we gave up 7 runs. So this was a huge bounce back for Frost and for Dean. And the offense did just enough at just the right times with really good situational hitting. So, man, this was a really impressive victory where I didn't have the chance to get the stat track pulled up until a little bit into it. And I was like playing a game with myself where I was like, are we down 10 runs, 20 runs, or somewhere in between? And we were up 1-0 in the third. And I was very pleasantly surprised by that. And I tried not to check it too much because I was like, the more I check it, the more likely something bad's going to happen, of course. But no, things went really well in this game. I really, really pleased. I'm sure Arkansas is just sick of us at this point.
The hatred that Arkansas fans probably have for us is probably equal to the hatred I have of FAU basketball.
Yeah, I would imagine. Imagine if we had played FAU in like the second weekend of the following season as well, lost again.
Anyway, I also want, this is more of a breakdown note. I actually do like the 1-2 punch of Jacob Frost into Blake Dean, because Frost has that hammer curve from the left-handed arm slot, and Blake Dean has the vertical slider from the right-handed arm slot. So you're getting them really used to that more hammer style drop curve with Frost from a different arm angle, and then you're dealing with the slider from the opposite arm angle, and it's really hard to adjust to that as a hitter. So I really like that sort of complementary 1-2 punch that those two have, especially, I mean, I don't think Blake Dean has had a day where his slider wasn't working. It's just everything else, like complementary's fastball can sometimes be a little off. I don't think there's been a single time that his slider hasn't worked. Frost last year got in trouble with the curve a little bit, just wasn't getting into enough pitchers' counts. But I mean, obviously wasn't the problem this time. So
that's true.
Yeah, really, really impressive victory for K-State. And then another impressive victory the very next day up against Michigan, where K-State ends up winning 5-1. And outside of the first inning, where, the first half inning, I should say, K-State led wire to wire. And they gave up 1 run in the first inning and then no more for the rest of the game. So some would call that a good pitching performance, but Connor, you have the offense here.
Yeah, couple of notable performances. D. Kennedy, the Texas transfer, 1 for 4 on the day, but a 2-run homer in the 5th inning, had to take K-State from 2 to 4 runs. That was a huge moment. And Seth Dardar, and also the 5th, that made it back-to-back homers. He put up a solo and went 2 for 3 on the day with a walk. Seth Dardar has been one of the most consistent players on this roster to begin the year. Then Nick English, 1 for 4 with an RBI. I feel like he's changed his swing a little bit this year. But generally, he just like his game just feels a lot stronger than it did. It feels like he matured a ton in terms of his on-field performance this past offseason. I'm pretty happy with how Nick English has looked so far. The Bear Madliak 1 for 3 and drew a walk as well. But a lot of the damage done in this game was done by the top of the order. The 2 through 5 hitters for K-State, they combined for 5 hits. K-State only had 6 on the day, so pretty big there. Bear Madley, of course, was the only other one to record a hit outside of that group. But yeah, this was a great win yet again for K-State with arguably the most impressive pitching performance of the entire weekend coming in this game from one of the youngest players on the roster.
Yeah, and you got 2 young guys who end up following the starter, who is Michael Cavedo. Cavedo ends up going 4 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 1 intentional walk. 74 pitches, so you want to get the walks down, but you'll take 5 Ks in 4 innings. You take those. So solid performance there, but I feel like the most notable performance is almost certainly Dante Lewis, who we complained about getting no help for the North Carolina game. So he pretty much said, fine, I'll do it myself. Went 4 innings, didn't give up a single hit, struck out 3 guys with 12 faced, and like he faced his minimum. He pitched 4 innings, faced only 12 batters on 42 pitches. That's like stuff you expect from a senior who's going to the draft the next year. And the best part is he was still cranking mid-90s the entire time. So that wasn't just him being gassed up against North Carolina. No, that's just how he throws.
Yeah, he was so freaking good in this game. And this was the type of stat line he deserved to have in the North Carolina game and should have had if not for kind of just getting let down by the defense behind him. But he was just incredible in this game. I mean, we were kind of saying on the last recap, Brian Smoller was saying it on the preview, Dante Lewis, he has the makings of the next superstar for K-State baseball. This could have been his moment, I think, if it had not been on Flow Baseball.
Yeah. Imagine if it was on anything else.
Something accessible to the general public. Yes, that would have been nice.
But to wrap up the day was James Guyette, who doesn't register the save because saves are technically calculated by 3 runs. But we'll give him the good noodle sticker in lieu of giving him a save. He pitches the 9th, gives up 2 walks with 1 strikeout, ends up facing 5 batters. But I think James Guyette, his biggest strength is going to be his sinker. So I'm not worried about Guyette. Yeah, he walked 2 guys and maybe made it a little bit more nerve-wracking. But we also had a closer. Granted, James Guyette's not pumping hundos. So we had another closer who did this a lot. But I think Guyette's probably locked down the closer spot, or at least 1A in the closer spot. 1B might be Slack. And then I don't know who our long relief guys are going to be outside of the potential midweek starters. I don't think we've seen Mason bust this year, have we?
I think we got him very briefly in that first week. Yes, we did. We got him. He's only appeared in 1 game, though. Only pitched 1 inning and gave up 2 runs, 1 earned, and faced only 5 batters. So we haven't seen a ton of him.
Okay. Neither here nor there. This was a really massive pitching performance from K-State. And then the next day, they just decide that we're going to do it again.
Yeah. And more really great pitching performances in that game, too. I mean, the Bats came alive and kind of stole the show. But I mean, right there was some incredible pitching too.
Yeah. And funnily enough, no home runs. You got 10. K-State scores 10, doesn't get a single home run, which rare in general, but especially for Pete Hughes teams that we've seen in the past. I mean, we already mentioned the Pena, Kojo, Goodwin teams, but I mean, even before that, we were always sort of known as the slugging team.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to that team with like Cam Thompson. That was, I think, like 21 maybe when he was a senior. That team was just absolutely loaded with guys that just went yard constantly. I mean, it was him and Phillips and Kokoska. I mean, those guys like pretty much did nothing but swing for the fences every time they were there, and that's how they went on that crazy Big 12 tournament run. Was they just would not stop hitting home runs. They just happened to run out of healthy pitchers that had an arm attached to them.
Yeah. Also, that's a poll and a name I did not expect to hear today was Zach Kokoska. Like that's up there with like Caleb Littlejim for me. It was like that's a guy who played at K-State and was pretty solid.
I think people really do forget how good Zach Kokoska was. He got drafted that year, and he's, I think, in double or triple A right now. I'm pretty sure he led that team in home runs. Like he was a really good baseball player that just kind of flew under the radar for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll cover the offense here. We'll just go notable performances. Micah Dean ends up going 2 for 5 with 2 RBI and a run. Rare off day for D. Kennedy, who I think still left hitting like 390 on the season after this. And Nick English goes 2 for 5 as well with an RBI. Shintaro Inoue, 3 for 5, 2 runs and an RBI. Bear Madliak, 2 for 3 with 2 walks. Max Martin, 3 for 5 with 3 RBI. David Bishop, 1 for 1 with an RBI and 2 walks, which that's just kind of David Bishop's thing. I think his role, and shout out to him going through another character arc to another Dave, where David Gasson, where I used to find him massively frustrating, but now I find him to be like one of the most likable and endearing people on the team. So, and granted, with David Bishop, it never got half as bad as it was with David Gasson, because I didn't think David Gasson could dribble a basketball for like the first 2 months that he was here. The extra base hits came from Nick English, Shintaro Inoue, Bear Madliak, and Max Martin. And unfortunately, we had 2 guys wear one as well. Micah Dean and Seth Dardar ends up getting hit by a pitch. But yeah, you put up 10 runs, but it's saying a lot that that's not even close to the most impressive performance of the day.
Yeah, that one goes to the starting pitcher, and that's Lincoln Sheffield, a junior college transfer, originally from Flowood, Mississippi, from Hines Community College. He absolutely killed it in this game. He went 7 innings, 5 hits, just 1 earned run, only 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, and then just a single wild pitch. Finished at exactly 100 pitches in this game. Absolutely fantastic day for Lincoln Sheffield in this one. He won a Big 12 Co-Newcomer of the Week as a result of this performance. And I mean, he just completely shut down the TCU offense for 7 innings. I mean, he was absolutely incredible in this one. TCU didn't break through until the 6th inning. So just there's only so many superlatives I can use to talk about Lincoln Sheffield and just how impressive he was in this game. But I think I've effectively made the point that I wanted to, which is that he was absolutely incredible in this one, and currently holds a 3.0 ERA, and he's got 14 strikeouts to 1 walk on the season so far. So that is a P. Hughes pitcher if I've ever seen one. And I remember listening to the broadcast on this one, or the radio broadcast of Brian. He made an interesting comparison, not in terms of like skill level or projectability, but in terms of style, and that he's kind of similar to Jordan Wicks
Oh,
as a lefty, where he's got his best pitch might be his changeup. The fastball isn't as high velocity as Wicks was. Wicks was getting 93, 94. Sheffield's getting 88 to 90. But that's a similar comp, similar type of build as well as lefties. But both wildly impressive. And Sheffield, what a day for him against TCU.
and depending on, I haven't seen Sheffield pitch because I don't have D1 baseball, full disclosure. But depending on the arm angle, it sounds like what might happen if you put Jordan Wicks and Owen Borma into a blender, depending on the arm angle.
Yeah, it could very well be it. But yeah, I only got to see a handful of clips that the baseball team posted, so remains to be seen on Sheffield. So we'll be the judge of that, Brian, before you get ahead of yourself. But there were also two other pitchers that appeared in this game. JJ Slack got an inning, a little bit wild in this inning. Gave up a hit, had a walk, gave up an earned run, had a strikeout. The run was on a passed ball, not a wild pitch, but still not the greatest inning for Slack, but definitely I wanted probably his best on the year so far, although still that ERA has ballooned a bit, albeit 3.1 innings, and it's early. So, tough luck. And then closing out this game was Tazwell Butler. Pitched an inning, got a strikeout, faced the minimum, did it in 14 pitches. No drama whatsoever for Taz Butler. I really appreciate that because we do have some pitchers in the past that have had a flair for the dramatic.
But we've had a few adventures with pitchers before.
But we've seen a lot of Taz Butler so far. He's appeared in 4 games, which is the most out of any K-State pitcher. And he's right now at 6 strikeouts, no walks, just 2 earned runs. Has given up a home run, but Taz Butler looks to be one of our top relievers at this point in the season. So I'm like, man, only so much you can say about how great a game the pitching staff had, but Sheffield in particular, a major hat tip to him.
Yeah. Which, that's an amazing weekend going 3-0 and managing to get back to 500, 4-4 against 3 ranked teams. Schedule's not getting any easier. K-State has to go to Frisco to play up against number 2 in the country, LSU, then play a tournament team in Sam Houston, and then a preseason ranked team in Nebraska. Now, LSU obviously is the big scary one there. I'll admit to being a little terrified of them, mostly because I remember what happened last time. But yeah, Nebraska.
To be fair, last time we faced Paul Skeens, and Paul Skeens, no matter what pitcher they bring out, it will almost certainly not be Paul Skeens unless they have uncovered another generational pitcher that was stuck as a 2-way guy at Air Force or whatever it was.
Yeah. I still remember, who was the starter for that game? Rule wasn't the starter, who was the reliever. Was it Borma?
I can't remember, honestly. It's been a while. You stall and I'll look.
But LSU obviously is the big scary one. Sam Houston's always going to be a consistently good baseball team. And Nebraska has sort of fumbled out the gates a little bit after being ranked in the preseason. They're 3-4. But this is another big chance to prove it. But for some reason, K-State gets like plus 78 to their overall as a team whenever they play in the state of Texas. Though I guess we'll find out if it's the state of Texas or specifically Arlington in Globe Life Park. But this is a really, really exciting time because we've seen both versions of the Batcats team that we've had. We saw the really, really young, inconsistent, albeit they played like 5 games in 5 days or something ridiculous like that. So we saw them on a short rest, and then we saw them just go out, not care about anything, and then just beat the crap out of a bunch of ranked teams. So I'm I don't know what to expect from this team other than they're fun. And that's kind of what I wanted from them. I wanted them to be fun.
And honestly, we were looking at this kind of 11 game slate to open the season, and like I mean we really were thinking, you know, if you can get like 2 of these games against these big opponents, that's going to be really big for RPI down the stretch, because the scheduling difficulty is already so high. If we just win a few of these games, uh, just a handful of them, then that's going to help us so much. Well, mission accomplished already in that department. I mean, we took the trophy home. I don't know if they have a trophy for it in the tournament that we just played last weekend. But we're honestly, I'd say, ahead of schedule at this point, and which is crazy to say after starting 1-4 and playing the way we did out in Conway. But I mean, the caliber of wins that we just picked up, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. TCU was kind of the preseason favorite for the Big 12 as well. Michigan, really highly thought of in the Big 10, along with Nebraska. And Arkansas, of course, that's an incredible program there too. They're top 5 preseason. And also I did find the game, K-State lost this one 7-3. So really not a huge blowout, all things considered. Borma started, pitched 4 1/3, actually pitched pretty well. I gave 4 hits, just 1 earned, 7 strikeouts, no walks, hit a batter. And Tyrell gave up 6 earned in 2 innings, which seemed to be the turning point in this game, believe it or not. Old friend alert, Shea Hart has pitched 2/3 of an inning in this one. Forced a fly out and a ground out. And then Cole Weisenbaker came in and pitched one more inning and cleaned things up. Skeens, he went 6 innings against us, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts. So honestly, it could have been significantly worse.
Yeah, that's my takeaway. We didn't get donkey rolled.
Yeah, we got for Paul Skeens standards a very average performance, all things considered. And K-State actually led this game for on the first inning and a half, and the game was tied all the way to the bottom of the 6th. We scored in the top of the first. LSU scored in the bottom of the second. Then nothing happened until looks like Tyrell got exploded in the 6th and the 7th. Unfortunately,
happens
quite often, actually.
Anyway, yeah, Batcats have been a very exciting team to watch or listen to this year, since no one on earth should or does have Flow Sports. I'm debating getting D1 baseball for the Frisco series, because at least I like what D1 baseball does.
Yeah, I don't feel as bad of a person if I get D1 baseball.
But now we can talk about the women's team, which this is another one of those where we're just going to talk generally. K-State did beat the crap out of KU in the second leg of the Sunflower Showdown, 90-60, and then dropped arguably the most important game of the year up against Baylor, 62-7. Well, it's given the context of the season, it became the most important game. At the beginning of the year, it probably would have been TCU, but yeah, they end up dropping against Baylor, 79-62. They were for the majority of the game, they were held at an arm's length, anywhere from 8 to 12 points. And it doesn't look like it's getting better. That's the bad part, because it feels like Groundhog Day. Connor and I, you and I have had this discussion. We had this discussion last year where we just picked the absolute worst time to lose our legs. And it's always towards the back end of the year. And now we're just sweating it because we don't know if we're going to be a host seed or not. we probably need to beat Iowa State and do some work in Kansas City to keep a host seed, which that should never be the case given how much better this team is talent-wise than the team last year.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's just incredibly frustrating to see this team go the way that it has. Because yeah, it's for some reason the end of regular seasons we just seem to be prone to drop these big games at the end of January. Last year, we lost 2 of our last 3. We dropped a game by 3 to a KU team we should have beat, and we lost a home to Iowa State. And that it was another game that we should have won. The year before, we ended the year on a 3-game losing streak, which I can't remember if we were on the bubble or not at that point. But we lost at West Virginia, at OU, and then got just demolished by Texas at home. So this is not a new story. There's just, for some reason, once we hit the very end of the season, something just like someone turns a key somewhere and things go bad. Even back of, I think this is 4 years ago at this point, 22, 4 seasons ago, drop a game to ranked Texas, drop a game by 3 to ranked OU, lose in double overtime to West Virginia, and then beat a bad TCU team and go out in the first round of the Big 12 tournament and then get stuck on that 8-9 line and get blown out by NC State in the second round of the tournament that year. Like, if you win a few of those games, maybe you get to the 7-11 line. But K-State, the last now 4 seasons, has not been doing itself any favors when it comes to late season positioning, when it comes to either making the field or increasing its potential for hosting. And if this team doesn't host, that's just a nightmare scenario for me, honestly. I mean, there's no reason that this team shouldn't be hosting. And that the season ended today, we would probably not be hosting.
Yeah. What I'll say is that in the most recent bracketology, K-State is still ranked as a host seed, still ranked as a 4. Do you want to hear the downside to that?
Yeah, let's hear the downside.
Do you want to hear who else is in our region?
I'll wager a guess here and say it's South Carolina is probably one of them.
Mm-hmm.
What about USC?
No.
Can I get UConn?
UConn.
Okay, so that's 2 of the 3. Did I get the 1, the 2 seeds there?
Yes.
Okay.
South Carolina is the 1 and not a qualifier, and UConn 2 is not a qualifier.
Okay, 3.
The 3 seed is someone we've played already.
Duke.
It's Duke.
Yeah, so we're...
Get us the hell out of here.
And these are solvable problems. We can win big games late in the season to keep ourselves out of these unsavory situations, which I know they're not intentionally losing, but it's just a weird pattern at this point where it seems once we get late in the season, something changes late in the regular season and we just cannot win the must-win games.
No. And by the way, West Virginia is also in our region. Get us the hell out of here. Get us out. I don't want to be here. I hate it here. It's so unbelievably frustrating to sort of be in this situation, especially because it is Groundhog Day. It's happened so many times before. And now there are rumors about, I'm not going to speculate. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, nor am I on staff. But I have heard rumblings about Ayoka Lee's injury being more serious than even they originally thought. So who knows what that means? She might be done for the year. Who knows? I doubt she is. She'll at least try. I just don't know if she's able to go. But yes, we're currently sitting on the 4 line and we're currently being able to host. We are teetering on the edge of something here that I would really rather not be at. So, and the bad news is the only way that we get ourselves out of the 4 spot or into a different region, because the primary goal should be hosting. Let me say that. Primary goal should be hosting. Secondary goal, stay the hell away from South Carolina. Get away from them. But it just doesn't look like that's the only way that we can raise is if we yoink an automatic qualifier spot from TCU, which will probably kick us up to a 3 seed. And that's if they'll let there be 2 3 seeds from the Big 12. Because, I mean, TCU's not moving. They're not moving from, I think there are 3 right now. Yes, there are 3 right now and they're falling. So, like, it's probably, yeah, we're stuck. We're stuck.
Yeah. Our only other hope is that the teams in front of us just start losing, which, like, I'm not counting on it. But yeah, we've unfortunately got no one to look at but ourselves on this one. We tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas on how to fix this. The late season doldrums. I don't know what's going on in late February with the women's basketball offices or whatever. Maybe they're dealing with the flu this time, like every time of year around this. I don't know, but yeah, it's really disappointing that we played ourselves out of a Big 12 title contention when we may have the 6th player of the year in Taryn Sides, the potential conference player of the year in Serena Sundell, that she had been healthy, the likely conference player of the year in Aoka Lee, and top to bottom, one of the most talented K-State women's basketball teams ever. And we're eliminated from title contention in the Big 12 with a game left on the schedule. And the ball was in our court for the majority of the season.
Yeah, and I think that's what upsets me so much. Is it'd be one thing if we, were a game or 2. Well, if we were like 2 or 3 games back going in like halfway through February, at least we could have said, we dropped a few games we probably shouldn't have, but you can focus on the future. No, it's the timing of it that makes it uniquely painful. And I just hate being on the 4-5 line when what you're staring down the barrel of is South Carolina.
Yeah, I really don't want to be second weekend fodder for the buzzsaw that is the South Carolina Gamecocks and Don Staley. Like, I don't want this team to be the team that gets like maybe like 15 seconds of coverage in like South Carolina's next national championship documentary, like, because that's what we're going to be if we lose in the Sweet 16 to them, if we play them, like we'll be a footnote, like. And after was one of the most successful women's basketball seasons ever for K-State, like, we got to bring something home, like. Yeah. Unless it's a Big 12 tournament trophy, which I don't care about that. But it would be good for the other benefits, such as ending the season on a strong note and giving us the best possible chance of getting off the 4 line. But the actual tournament trophy, I do not care at all about the Big 12 tournament trophy.
No, I don't care about the trophy. It's like you said. I care about it in the extent that it gets us off the 4 line. Actually, we can be on a 4 line. I don't care. I just don't want to be on South Carolina's 4 line.
Yeah, and if possible, South Carolina's the first team to avoid. I would also preferably like to avoid Texas as well. Yeah. But regardless, we're going to see one of them at some point if we keep if we manage to keep winning in the tournament. Like at some point we're gonna run into a buzzsaw. Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and that it just makes me kind of sad. But I don't know. I kind of don't want to talk about it anymore because it makes me sad.
I don't want to talk about it either. Like I don't think people want to hear us talk about it more than we need to. I think we've said about all that we can say on it anyways, and I think we've probably effectively echoed most people's thoughts on it. Happy with how the season's gone, but really disappointed that it's going this way again.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is no men's team. So do you have any final notes before we sign off? Oh, the tennis.
I have a few. Two of them are K-State sports directly related. One of them is not. Is related to this podcast. The first one, I wanted to give a shout out to the women's golf team, where Sophie Bird, she tied the school record for a 54-hole score. She went 12 under par, 204, and the team as a whole went 24 under par, 840, and finished third place in the tournament they were in, and I believe is now nationally ranked like 30th, I believe. So that's pretty impressive stuff. Good job for them.
Not at the Brizzy, though.
Not the Brizzy, though. So asterisk next to this season, of course. But tennis team, they had a player get named Big 12 Player of the Week, Marlgood Chosimjov, and Casey also took down a ranked Iowa team in tennis. So I think the first year we did the show, they went like 2-18 or something absurd like that, and it was just like a little sad, even though we didn't cover them to begin with. It was just something that sat in the back of my mind. Like, I'm sure that makes the players really sad and the coaches frustrated. So I feel bad for them. Like, that's kind of how it was. But now they're playing good, and that's nice. The third thing I wanted to bring up was I'm going to shout out the guy at Commerce Bank that recognized me today. That caught me completely off guard. I was depositing a check, and he was like, "All right, thank you, Connor. By the way, love your podcast." I was like, "What?
What?"
That wasn't what I said. That was not what I said. I said, "Thank you very much. I appreciate that." But that was just not what I was expecting to get out of that interaction. And so it was nice to meet you. I don't know what your name is, but regardless, it was nice to meet you.
I think that makes this. I think you're the only one. No, that's not true. I was recognized once.
You recognized my voice at a game one time, I think.
I think Evan recognized both of us at a game once.
I can't remember. I don't know why I'm saying that, because it makes it sound like this happens a lot. It happens maybe once a year at most. And
it's happened to me exactly once. So
yeah, it's happened to me like maybe 2 times. I think
it's 2 or 3.
Yeah, maybe twice. 2, maybe 3. Well, we've been doing this for almost 4 years, so that it's about once a year. Then averages out. Yeah, I should have trusted my gut on that. I didn't need to do the math.
Anyway, do you have any final notes before we sign off?
Nothing else.
All right. Well, that's the case. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you post just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. That's capital A, capital C, and cats. It's been a while since I've done that. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I am at Connor Boutsor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store. Link found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.